For this first drawing, we're going to keep it kind of simple. So the first thing we need to do is create a folder where we're going to store all of these. So you should have a folder that has your name on it. I told you to create that in your first video. But for this one, my folder is called Tech of Today. Just to show you, you go into your project, and my project is Tech of Today. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Fusion Lessons, and you should do the same. That way, all of these video lessons will go into the same folder when you save them. Hit enter, and now you have a new folder. So to create a sketch, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a sketch. And this allows us to create a flat 2D plane sketch that we can then extrude into a 3D object. So we're going to make this a very simple drawing at first, since it's the first lesson for 3D. And we're going to start with the 2-point rectangle tool. So if you're going to draw something that is even remotely rectangular, this is a good place to start. So we need to select 2 points diagonally. So I like to start in the center, so I'm going to click on the center location and drag outward. And we're going to dimension this by typing the dimensions as we go. You can change dimensions later, which we'll do in this drawing. But for right now, we're going to set the rectangle to the size that we need to start with. So you can use the tab key to switch between the two dimensions. So you can see the blue highlight switching between those two. So I'm going to make my vertical dimension 1.5. And I'm going to hit the tab key. And I'm going to make my horizontal 2.5. Once I have those two dimensions, I can hit enter. And I have a rectangle already set to the dimensions I need. We're going to then use the line tool, and what we're going to try and make is we're going to make a little kind of U-shaped bracket. So we're going to just randomly draw a U-shape in there. So I'm going to click anywhere on this line. Just make sure you get that X, and that way it tells you that you're crossing the line. And I'm going to drag down, making sure, you see how it kind of sticks to 90 degrees? So make sure it snaps to 90 degrees, and any length is fine. Just place it, make sure it snaps to 90 degrees again, and back up until it snaps to that line. So now I've just randomly drawn in that U shape. I've given it no dimensions, and now I need to give it some. So I'm going to go into my Create tab, and I'm going to select Sketch Dimension. And you need to measure from something. So we've already set the dimensions of our outside rectangle, so we're going to measure to that. So I'm going to grab my line, I'm going to click on my line, and then I'm going to click on this bottom line, and that will show me how far apart the two lines are. Once I place the dimension, and you want to place your dimensions outside your part, I can then enter a dimension. So we're going to make this one 0.875, enter. I'm going to do the same thing with these, going to the sides to figure out how wide they are. And we're going to go 0.625 or 5/8 of an inch. Enter. Same thing to the right. 0.625, enter. So all I want to keep is this U-shaped bracket. And I would be fine to leave this sketch the way it is, but I want to show you another tool to kind of clean things up. If you go up here to your Modify tools in your sketch palette, there's a tool called Trim. And if I select that tool, anything I hover over, it's going to trim between two things. Like there, it would cut out that line, it would cut out that line. But I want to remove this one right here. So I hover over it until it turns red, and then I click on it, and it deletes that one line. So it's kind of a quick way to clean up your drawing, because all we want is that U shape. You have a Finish Sketch button here, and if you get a warning about constraints, that's fine. You have a Finish Sketch button here, and you have a Finish Sketch button here. Either one works. And go to your home view on your view cube, so that way you can see it in isometric. We're going to click on Extrude, and now we're going to give it some depth. And I like to kind of pull it a direction that I want to go to get it close, and then we can edit its depth here. So this one we're going to make 0.5 inches, or 1/2 of an inch. So we could have rounded over all the corners in the sketch, but it's way more difficult to do. Once you have a 3D object, that's when you want to start adding all of your kind of detail features. So in this instance, we're going to use the Fillet Tool. And what's nice about this is I can pick corners, and then I can tell it how much I want them to fillet. But I'm going to go through and I'm going to pick all of my corners. And you can pick all of your visible ones pretty easy from this, but what's nice is those hidden corners. Those will appear through the object, and you can select them without having to rotate. So I could use my view cube, rotate around, select all the corners, or I can just select them through the part. And you know you have all of those vertical corners if you have 8 of them. And we're going to set our radius. You can do it here or you can do it in the menu. We're going to set our radius to 0.125. And that rounds over all of those corners all at once. If we did that in the sketch, we'd have to draw that arc on every single corner. So it is a lot easier to do it in 3D. Click OK when you're done. And now we want to add some holes through this. This is just a little C bracket, and you can bolt it to things. Just a very simple part. There is a hole feature, but I'll show you how to use that later because it's a little more complex than just making a hole through something. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new sketch. So we have the Create Sketch button here. It's also in the menu. And you can select any flat surface now. See how they highlight? So I want to select this top surface. And I'm going to use this center diameter circle. It's also in the menu. You have multiple options, but we're going to choose center diameter. And we're just going to randomly draw some circles in here. It doesn't really matter how big they are because we're going to tell them how big to be. So we're going to grab our sketch dimension tool, which is what we use to tell it how big it's going to be. And from this point forward, I'm just going to use the shortcut D for dimension, so that way we can save some time. I want to first dimension the circles themselves, and we're going to make these 0.25 or 1/4 of an inch. Do that for both of them. Click on it, drag out, place it, 0.25, enter. And now I'm going to use the same dimension tool to tell it how far away from here and how far away from here it should be. So I'll click on the circle, that line, pull my dimension off to the side, and we're going to go 0.375, enter. Same thing here, pull it off to the side, 0.375, enter. Do the same thing for this one. 0.375, enter. So all I'm doing is I'm saying I want this circle to be this far away from that line. So 0.375, enter. Once you have those, you can pause the video at any time, but this would be a good place to pause so that you can see all the dimensions and type them in for your circle. And once you have that done, you can click Finish Sketch. And we're going to use the Extrude tool again, but this time I'm going to show you how to do it through the menu. So you could just grab this and drag it down, but using this, what this menu means is the start position, the profile plane. That means the plane that you drew it on. Remember, a plane is a flat surface made up of 2 axes, so this is the XY axis that makes a plane. Direction, you can choose to go multiple directions, okay, but we're just going to choose one direction because we just want to go down. We're going to select all because we want it to go all the way through the part, and we're going to flip the direction, and you'll see that the operation automatically switches to cut. Join would just kind of fill in the hole. Cut. Intersect is an entirely different animal. We'll get into that one later, but we're just going to use the cut command, and you see that the cylinder turns to red. That means it's going to delete everything in that solid object where that tube is. So once you hit OK, now we have holes through our part, and they do go all the way through to the back. What I want you to do is kind of practice maneuvering around this, and then make sure you get your home view, and then I want you to take a screenshot, Command-Shift 3 or 4, of this part, and I want you to upload that picture to Canvas for a grade. You'll also need to save this. So to save, click on the save, give it a title. We're going to call this one Lesson 1, and use your drop down to make sure that you're in the correct folder. So mine's in Tech of Today, yours will be your name, and we're in the Fusion Lessons folder. Make sure you double click on that so it knows to put this file in here. Once you have that, you're done with Lesson 1 and you can move on to Lesson 2.